Now, the risks. What are the risks? Loss of investment funds. It's not guaranteed. Businesses can fail. If you have a private business, you have to make sure it lasts at least those 2 to 3 years and hires at least those 10 U.S. workers. If it can't show both of those, then you can't get the permanent card. Regional centers, those aren't foolproof either. Just because it's pre-approved by the government doesn't mean that each project is good. It doesn't mean that the economy will be okay. It doesn't mean that 2 years later it's still there. So there's a risk. Loss of investment funds. You might not get your money back. If the project fails, if all the money is gone, maybe you can have a lawsuit with other investors, maybe you can get some of it back, but it's possible you could lose the whole investment if the business fails. Inability to hire at least 10 U.S. workers. To get that final permanent card from the 2-year card, you have to show those 10 U.S. workers are hired. Maybe it's the regional center's job, maybe it's your job in a private business. If you can't show those 10 U.S. workers, then you can't get the tenure card. Aging out of investors' children. Now, this process could take a few years. And the first step, the I-526, takes 8 to 12 months. What if you have children? You want them to get the green card also, but maybe they're 19 years old, maybe they're 20 years old, you can be turning 21 soon. Remember, a child is under 21, unmarried. Can you at least get the first green card before the children turn 21? As long as they get the 2-year card filed before you turn 21, you're okay. But you have to get to that point. The money's invested, I-526 is approved, then you file for the 2-year card. Your children and spouse can apply there while they're under 21.
That is at the time of filing or at the time of approval?
At the time of filing.
Okay.
829 filing.
829?
No, not 829. The 45.
526.
No, 526 is just a petition.
Okay.
So at the time you file the green card, the I-45, step 2.
I-485. Okay.
If the child is under 21. Abandonment of permanent residency. Just because you have your green card doesn't mean you have it forever. Let's say you have the 10-year card, it's approved. But let's say, oh, I want to go to China. I want to take care of my family. I want to open a business there. If you leave the U.S. for more than 1 year at a time, you automatically abandon your permanent residency and your green card is canceled. More than 1 year consecutively, green card is canceled. You have to make sure you maintain it. So some people try to come to the U.S. every 6 months, but you keep doing that for a year or longer, then at the airport, Immigration Service is going to notice and they'll say, you have to stop, you have to spend more time here. You have to actually maintain your permanent residence, spend some time here in the United States. Now, also the government could take it away from you, the green card. If you're arrested and convicted of a serious crime and you're put into deportation, they could cancel the green card that way. Okay? So it's not a permanent card forever. You can lose it. Denial of removal of conditions. The 2-year conditional card is just like any other green card. It's just only good for 2 years. So you filed to remove those conditions and make it permanent. Now what if that removal of conditions is denied? You've got your 2-year card, it's expired, and they put you into court because there's no way to remove those conditions. Maybe you can't prove the 10 U.S. workers. Maybe there's some other problem. So that's a risk also. First step is approved, you get the 2-year card, second step denied. And the last one, U.S. taxation of worldwide income. Once you get the green card, then technically you're supposed to pay U.S. taxes on any worldwide income that you have. It doesn't matter if you're only working in the U.S. or maybe you have income coming from overseas. Technically, everything is subject to U.S. taxes. You're supposed to pay taxes. Maybe you don't tell the government, but if later they find out, then it could be a problem. Okay? So U.S. taxation of worldwide income. Now there are exceptions for overseas income. There's foreign income tax credits and other things, but CPAs can take care of that. We just have to make sure, you have to know that worldwide income is taxed. once you get the green card. So sometimes, to get around that, you might have, let's say you have the money, you want to bring your family here. Maybe you give the money to your spouse. She is the primary investor. She applies for the green card. She files the I-526, and then you stay in China. You manage your business, earn more money, you avoid the taxes. She applies for the green card, children apply for the green card, and then later on, you apply for the green card as a spouse. So then, that might be a year or two later. You don't have to all file right away. As long as you're still married, you can file later. You can follow to join. That's what it's called.
This is what time, in the seconds, when you apply
So,
for 10 years?
immigrant visa application. So, if you're in the United States, you file the form I-45. If you're overseas, you get interviewed at Guangzhou. Now, sometimes everybody gets interviewed together, both husband and wife and children. But sometimes they don't. Maybe the investor and the kids want to come first, find schools and all that. And maybe the other spouse wants to stay in China, run the business a little more, take care of affairs, wrap everything up, and then be interviewed at Guangzhou.
Do they
So-
use English in interview?
What?
What kind of language do they use?
Oh, no. Usually officers speak both, because not everybody speaks English. The primary language is usually English, but either one. Okay? They can have interpreters.
So, so basically the investor, for example, is investor, the spouse is working in China, investor is not working in China, then basically they file the application for the green card in US. They stay in US without the spouse applying. So can the spouses stay that way without applying for permanent residency? Basically, continue working in China?
Well, you don't need. Okay. We talked about a few different ways to apply for the green card. If you want the spouse in China to get the green card through EB5, then you have to bring the spouse over before you file the removal of conditions. Okay, 829.
Oh, you have to do that before, okay.
Or the spouse and the children can stay in the U.S., get the green cards, get the permanent card, apply for U.S. citizenship, and then bring the other spouse over, because then the other spouse is married to a U.S. citizen and apply right away for the green card. Okay. So, there are other options. You don't have to come immediately. But if you don't get it with a 2-year card, then you wait until the spouse becomes a U.S.
Becomes
citizen.
citizen.
So it's a
Like
long time.
7 years away. So when does the taxation kicks in, from the moment temporary card or?
As soon as you get the green card. So after you get interviewed in Guangzhou, you get stamped, you fly to the United States, then you get the green card.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, alternatives. What if $500,000 or $1 million, that's a lot of money. What if you don't have that? What if you can't get it? Alternatives to the EB5 program, okay? The employer-sponsored green card process, that starts with what's called labor certification. It's also called PERM. That is the first step of all employer-sponsored green cards. You need a job offer. You need an employer willing to sponsor. Labor certification is actually a test of the market. You put out advertisements for the job. If nobody qualified applies, then you get to move forward with the process. That's labor certification. So you have to show that no qualified U.S. workers are available. All right? If there's nobody qualified applies, then you get to move forward with the process and apply for the green card. It might take a few years, but that's the first step. Maybe you just at least want to start with a temporary work visa. You don't have an employer willing to sponsor you for the green card yet, but at least you want to apply for a work visa. The most common is H-1B. So usually a student comes here, they graduate on F1, they get their OPT for 1 year after they graduate, or maybe for 27 or another 17 months. After the OPT expires, or before they expire, you apply for the H-1B, which is a work visa. You have an employer willing to file the H-1B for you. Now, not just any job qualifies for H-1B. It has to be a bachelor's degree job. So it can't be a chef, it can't be a janitor. Usually, you have to show that there's some sort of specialized skill involved, some analysis, or some business development, marketing, something. Engineer, doctors, those are the easy cases. E1 or E2, those are for international trade or investor temporary work visas. Now, not all countries qualify. Only countries with a trade treaty with the United States for these type of visas can qualify. Unfortunately, China isn't one of them, but Taiwan, South Korea, Singapore, they do qualify. And it's not 500,000 or 1 million US dollars. You just have to show that you're investing in a private business here. The more the better. Usually we recommend at least 50,000 US dollars in a private business. And you show you're a citizen of a treaty country. And you show that it's a substantial investment. It's not just making enough money to support yourself and your family, that it's potential for growth in the business. Okay? That's an E1 or E2. And then an L1, multinational company transferees. Let's say you work overseas for a company. You work for at least 1 year. The company wants to transfer you to a US office. Or maybe the company wants to open a US office. They can transfer you here to the United States, and you can apply for an L visa to transfer between companies. So you just have to show the ownership relationship between the US company and the overseas company. It could be a parent, subsidiary, it could be branch, it could be affiliates. You just have to show the ownership relationship. Now, there are two types of L1s. There's executives and managers. You show that you're coming to run, or at least have a managerial role in the business. Or number two, L1B is those specialized skill positions, where there's a reason they want to transfer you here. You have specialized knowledge of the company's market, its products, its internal processes, so they want you to come here to be employed by the US company. Right? And the very last alternative is the B1. Maybe you want to invest in a business here, but you don't want to stay here. You don't want to work here. Maybe you want to come here to check out a business every so often. A B1 is just a visitor visa for business purposes. You're not allowed to work. You can only stay for up to 6 months at a time. But usually you can apply for, sometimes you can get a 10-year visa, but China, it restricts it. So, but you can apply for new visas if you show that you want to check on investment. All right. Other green card options. These are the other options for a green card that we talked about before. EB11, EB12, and NIW. Those are the self-sponsored options. EB11 is the hardest because you have to show that you're at the top of your field in sports, arts, education, business, science. If you show that you have national or international acclaim, maybe you have published a lot of papers, maybe newspapers have written articles about you, maybe you earn a lot more money than other people in your field do, maybe people have asked you to judge other people's work because you're so good. Maybe you've won a very, very big award for your work. You have to show you have extraordinary ability. EB12, outstanding professors and researchers. If you are a professor at a college or university and you've been working there for at least 3 years and you have international recognition, you've done excellent work, published papers, done research, then you could apply for EB12. Or maybe you work for a private company. You're a researcher of a private company. You have at least 3 years of research experience and you have that international recognition. You made some very significant discoveries. And the employer is willing to sign the paperwork. Then you could do an EB12. EB13, we talked about L1s before, multinational transferees. If you're working overseas and they want to transfer you to a US affiliated business, and you are going to be an executive or a manager, you can apply for a green card that way. Okay? National interest waiver. Now, sometimes people are thinking of, how do I get the green card? No employers want to sponsor me. I have to sponsor myself. I'm doing a lot of research. Maybe just got my PhD. I either think of EB11, extraordinary ability, or think of national interest waiver, NIW. The biggest difference is, with the NIW, well, with EB11, there's a list of 10 criteria, judging people's work, significant prize, publications, people writing articles about you. So there's 10 criteria, you have to meet at least 3 of them. It's a quantitative. You show it's a numbers game sometimes. NIW, it's not about the numbers. You show 3 things. Your work has substantial intrinsic merit. It's not just a waste of time. There's something meritorious about your work. It's national in scope. It's not just a local problem. It's not that you're just here to build this bridge in Columbus. It has national implications. Maybe you're working on researching disease that anybody in the United States could have. Okay? And your work and you will serve the national interest to a greater extent than others. If somebody else has your qualifications, but somehow you should stay more than they should. Okay? Something distinguishes you from other people in your field or somebody else who is similarly qualified. Why should you? What distinguishes you? Okay? That's the national interest waiver. It's in the national interest for you to stay in the United States.